Hi, I'm Coach Hallis. Welcome to week 10 of the Keeping It Real vlog. Last week we talked about the project design elements for a project that I've already done before with students, and this week I want to focus more on the project that I'm going to be doing in the third quarter with students for the first time. I have done this before with student athletes, but doing it in a classroom environment and tying it to standards and things like that is completely different, and there are other elements that are going to be added to it beyond just the product itself. For this project, we're going to be building dog houses for the local animal shelter to distribute to families in need of outdoor shelters, rather than just finding somebody for not having an appropriate shelter if they can't afford one for an outdoor animal. This gives the animal shelter an opportunity to offer them adequate shelter for those animals. So we've done this before. The first time that I really did any kind of woodworking was for this project. This was several years ago. So I'm going to be having an English class do it now. And so unlike last time where with the $10 challenge, I started with the standards and then figured out what the project was going to be or the product that the students would produce, this time I'm starting with the product. I know that if I can get kids to do this project, there's an authentic hook that's built into it. There are a lot of skills that they can learn that will be useful to them in the real world with building and repair and power tools. It will expose students to things that they may not have known that they were interested in, like being able to use power tools or fix something or design something or build something if they haven't done that before. So I know that the product and the cause is something that students will be able to buy into. And that's where I started with this project. So then the next step would be to look into how does this fit the standards that I'm trying to teach. And so in my case, I found several English 12 standards. This will be the first quarter of second semester, which is their English 12 class. So I found several English 12 standards that I'm going to be able to work in, mostly involving writing, research, and some reading. So essential questions that come out of that: how can I make a positive impact on my community? What misunderstandings and misconceptions exist around animal shelters, adoptions, and pet ownership? And how can my writing improve the lives of people and animals in Hopewell? So those are my essential questions, the standards that are being connected to it. And from there, I started building out the elements that I talked about last week. Again, these are from High Tech High has a great website that I mentioned last week and I linked to in that video of different ways of going about that. I know that my project launch is going to involve an animal control officer, at least one of them, coming and talking to them about why these things are useful. Since we can't go on a field trip to the animal shelter right now due to COVID restrictions, next best thing is to have the shelter staff come to us. And we're going to build out from there of making these things. And in terms of the English writing components, I know that I'm going to have them doing weekly journals about their experience of making something that'll either be written or vlog form. And there's going to be a writing component that I'm going to give students the choice of individually. So it's going to be a group project, but individually they're going to have to journal and vlog, and they're going to have to each pick from a list. And so far my list has 6 options. Things like writing an informative article to promote adoption that'll be published to the school social media and the city website, an article on misconceptions about animal shelters, and an informative article about rescue animals versus buying from a breeder, figuring out where we're going to post these. It'll probably fall under the city website under the animal control officer's page. So there's just a few different ideas of what I have for them to be accountable for writing an individual component that's connected to what we're doing here. And then we get into some reading things as well. Every week I'm going to have them read something that's related to the content. So in this same planners where I just have a couple of things in terms of reading materials, I'm going to have the class as a whole figure out what are the materials. So we have a spreadsheet going. In this case, I found the specific things already that we're linking to of what they need, and their job is going to be to figure out, well, what's the individual price of those things based on this website, where we're going to be getting this stuff, and then what's the total cost, and then they're going to be writing out a grant as a class for or a grant proposal for asking for funds for the project itself. So they're going to have to do that writing component as well. Even though I'm pretty confident that the that the source that we're going to be seeking funding from is going to be supportive. That led into the mini project. So I've done this project before. If you haven't done it yourself, according to the great Jeff Robin, always do the project yourself, always do it yourself. That is what we're going to be doing. I've already done it myself, but what I haven't done is the mini project, or the scale model is what I was thinking of, is giving them exposure to some power tools for the first time and getting them to go through an initial prototype of this. And so my question was, is that justifiable? Is that a good thing that I should do for this? Have them go through some kind of prototype or mini project or mini version of the project. And by doing that myself, which I did, I made a 1:3 scale model of the dog houses that they'll be building. And there are certain things that don't translate well from the small scale to the large scale. So some things do. Connecting this with brad nails, for example, is not really a great translation, because they're going to be using countersink bits and screws to put this thing together. The roof is just like one shingle tab on each side, and that's not how they're actually going to be doing the roof. So what I did realize is that some steps of this are really practical and make a lot of sense. So they are going to learn how to mark and then do some basic cuts and learn a couple of tools, like how to use a table saw on a scale model. And they'll come up with the wooden components for this, learning how to use a miter saw and a table saw. And then they'll have those components, which then they can practice their art design. The other thing is I'm going to have each group think of a theme that they're going to communicate through the artwork that goes onto their doghouse. So they can figure out what their theme is, they can practice it on this scale model, and then we'll be ready to move on to starting the other one. We don't need to use separate joinery to put this together and use the skills that don't apply to the big project, but we can do the things that do apply to the big project. So that's what that's going to look like. I didn't know for sure until I went through this myself. Hey, what part of these apply? What part of this applies? What part of it doesn't? So I'm feeling a lot better about starting to figure out what's going to go where in the project, and that allowed me to start this list of, okay, here's the mini project components. Here's what the kids are going to do for that, and then what order can we do the other parts in? So from this, I will then go through and plot out a calendar like I have done with the other 2 quarters, and this list will help me figure out where are we going to do which of these steps in the way that makes the most sense, and where do we fit in the reading and the writing components as well. But this is the starting point where I am.